Welcome to your Frequency Shift podcast. Hi, I'm Nick.
Hi, I'm Karis.
Together we help founders, leaders, and families recalibrate life, love, and business at the level that actually matters, your nervous system and your frequency. In this space, we speak honestly about the things that drain you and the practices that restore you. From relationships and polarity to leadership and legacy, we strip it back so that you can show up fully alive at home and in the boardroom. Whether it's the two of us or powerful guests joining in, this podcast is here to help you shift.
Hi everyone, welcome back to your Frequency Shift podcast. I am Karis here with Nick. And over the last two episodes, we've explored where our patterns come from when we're talking about authenticity and showing up authentically in this world. The patterns that we are inheriting from family stories and guilt and people pleasing and what it costs to break them. But today we get to talk about what you gain, because living authentically is not just heavy work forever. It is a doorway to peace as well. It's fundamental to living and touching what creativity is and what real connection is, and actually living in a body that finally feels like it can exhale.
This episode's really focused on embodiment, and not theory, not just processing, but the actual lived experience of truth. And I'm going to start off with a quote again with Gabor Mate, and he says, when we choose authenticity over attachment, we reclaim our sense of aliveness. And this is where the nervous system, where identity, and where spirituality all meet. So when you're aligned with your truth, your nervous system feels different. You breathe differently. You sit differently.
So what is that? What does it look like? Because I want to get an image of someone.
Well, your face softens. Your shoulders aren't, up against your neck.
Jaw's not clenched.
Yes, you've dropped the tongue down from the roof of your mouth. You are not clenching. Your toes aren't curling. You're not fidgeting. You're not necessarily looking around and waiting to be attacked or berated in some way, shape, or form. You move from this sympathetic state of having to prove yourself, which is a continuous action. And that's an interesting way of looking at that part of the nervous system, and that energy into your ventral vagal state, which is just this calm, connected, open demeanor. And you'll feel you're not necessarily trying to close yourself off from interacting with people. It's this open embrace, not just with yourself and whatever is feeling alive with you in the moment, but with the life that is happening around you.
It's interesting because you'll be able to see people who operate in their lives like that, and you'll be able to see them in a room immediately. Because once you see them, it's almost like your nervous system attunes to them, and you feel like, oh, I can relax a little bit, and it's interesting that you bring up that quote by Gabor Mate, because I listened to a podcast with him recently, and in there he speaks about how he's still very tearful in the podcast, where he talks about reading Winnie the Pooh. And there's this part where he reaches the end of the thing, and so Christopher Robin now has to explain to his toys that he won't be able to play with them anymore because he's going to school now. And the last line of that book is that somewhere in the enchanted forest, a little boy is playing with a little boy and a bear of playing forever or something along those lines. And he explained why it made him so emotional, because he just said, if he could do it again, he would do it completely differently, because in this life, he did so much to prove his existence, to prove his worth, like he is worthy of his existence through the expression of hard work. And in essentially working hard, he sacrificed or gave up his playfulness and his joy and his creativity and all of those things because he wanted to prove his existence through like his hard work and what he did. And he was relating back to the guy that was interviewing him because he said for a couple of weeks he takes off his business and his podcast so that he can go and spend time with his wife and his kids unplugged. And that is the best thing for him, for his business, for his creativity, because he gets to like plug into the light that he's creating instead of being a bystander of it. I think when we speak about wanting to prove our worth, you know, sometimes we aren't really aware of like how big that is in the space, you know, and just I just wanted to share that story.
I think also just maybe how I would translate that for myself. Having that been a big part of my own journey, that bystander, as you mentioned. I think it's interesting. It's also it's like you're using all these vanity metrics to validate your existence, be it through social media, be it through you in the business and what your ARR and MRR looks like, what your closing ratio looks like, how much content are you producing, how many reports are getting done, what is the level of execution, what is the speed in which one is executing. And it's this continuous process where you're trying to get up this ladder that never essentially ends, because the expectation the need for proof becomes more and more and more to validate your success, to validate the status, to validate this identity that you've had to build to essentially validate who and what you are.
That's interesting, because when I look at that concept that you spoke about that's almost been force-fed to us from the time that we're little, is that there's this lie that is told constantly where we translate our worth as like productivity. The more productive you are, the more worthy you are. The more that you are able to, and I'm not saying don't fulfill your dreams, don't go after them, don't like reach your full potential, all of those things. It's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. If you're doing this and sacrificing, you know, the whole reason why you started doing this, which is so that you can spend time with your kids and to live joyfully and to find that creativity in yourself again. It's so counterintuitive. I'm doing this so that I can have more of this, but I traded that in because the numbers mean more, the metrics mean more. This lie I've been told, I believe it, which is that, I'm only worth it when I'm productive.
And when I get to this point, then I can relax. Then I can plug in. Then I'm worth enough. I've proved my worth enough that I can actually go and enjoy the life that I've created. But at that point in time, it's too late.
You're already living in a survival state, so much so that it doesn't matter how much time you have. You will sleep, but you will never feel rested. You will work, but you will never feel fulfilled. And so this is the thing. It's such a fine balancing out, because you actually don't catch yourself. It's such a slow, you don't catch yourself until you're in it, you know. Once that thing has built so much momentum that it's whoa, how do we get you, you know? And so, I think it's also an invitation to be able to look at where you are in that space, and then catch yourself. You know, there's it doesn't matter how far along you are, you can always just sort of bring yourself back in. And it's so interesting because with a lot of the clients that I've had that have a very similar thing with productivity. It's also a thing with decentering their parents in their lives and recognizing that they are the adults within their lives versus someone else's making the decision for me, or someone has to okay what I want to do. And that's one of the things that also comes back to regulation. No one is going to give you a permission slip or sign your permission slip so that you can be more regulated. No one is going to tell you, okay, this is enough. You've been productive enough. You've done all the work. Now you can rest. You don't have that. And so it's important to really look at, like, I am like the master of my own life. I'm the grown-up here. I'm an amazing person who gets to have an amazing life, and I get to live it how I want. And that comes with regulation. It comes with boundaries. It comes with discipline. And I also wanted to say that a lot of the principles and the things that we share within this podcast are very simple, but simple does not mean easy. And I think that's the mark of real authenticity, because it's not about perfection, it is about regulation. Because you can really only express yourself freely when your body feels safe, when your mind feels safe to be able to move into that response in your nervous system. Because when you feel peaceful, when you're peaceful, you're nourished, you're rested. And that's when your authentic energy becomes magnetic. And I love what Florence Scovel Shinn said, which is faith is when faith knows it's already received and it acts accordingly. And when you live authentically, it feels like that. You're acting from an inner security instead of hustling for this external permission. So when I feel into the questions for that, in terms of how do I spot check myself when I'm moving through these big things, it's like, do I feel rushed? Do I feel tight in my body, or do I feel open and grounded? The second one, I think, is, am I moving from joy or fear from of disapproval? And lastly, does my body feel like home when I'm speaking my truth? Or do I feel spacey and flighty and I don't even feel like I'm in my body? So when we move into what it means to actually unlearn these false selves, there needs to, I don't know, for myself, it's understanding that, like, authenticity is not self-improvement. It's unlearning that this false self, the performer, the pleaser, the controller, whatever you identify with, when those layers actually start falling away, you remember who you are and what your natural state is, which is calm, creative, and connected.
100%. And it's just also recognizing that unlearning comes with loss. That unlearning is recognizing that the identity that you've built is one that is built around survival, and it's going to resist dying. In certain circles, you'd call it an ego death. It's a part of yourself that doesn't want to go into the good night.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite funny. This bit here, the unlearning that comes with loss, that's what actually inspired the Powerly quiz that I did with the different archetypes. Mm-hmm. And it all ties into this idea. And if you actually view it through this lens of authenticity, you can actually see, this is where I'm actually fighting. So I would invite anyone that hasn't taken it yet, please go jump on. It's on frequencycoaching.com. You're able to click through there, and it's about 3 minutes. So look, the beauty with this identity shift is that depending on how you go about it, it's either going to be this fight, or it's just going to feel like a shedding. And I'd even say it can dissolve when you're at peace with this process. Yeah. So you'll notice as you begin to shift from this identity, it's as if you're just taking a deep breath in, and it's a gentle exhale, and you can feel this lightness and this openness that arises. And a couple of questions that you could ask yourself is, what part of me needs unlearning first? And this is just you gently filtering and focusing that inner GPS And what new word or affirmation could I claim as truth for myself? And maybe that could be something in line of I am enough, I am allowed to rest, I am safe to be seen, I am valuable for being who and what I am.
Yeah.
I'm not a human being, I'm a human doing. That
Yeah.
switch that you get to make into I am a human being, I'm not a human doing. It's just this beautiful process as we begin to unlearn and we begin to cope. And I'd even say there's a grieving process, because I find that it's quite cyclical as well. Even when you have the conscious awareness and you recognize that this is something that you're letting go of, and it's that pattern and it's the way that you identify and see the world that you do not want to necessarily let go of, that because that actually feels unsafe. The letting go in itself feels unsafe. That feels uncomfortable in the nervous system.
Well, when safety does not feel like home, like when you're used to chaos and when you're used to like not being sure, or people withholding things from you, or you can't sit down until you've done all the tasks on the thing. If you grew up in a household like that, now you're an adult and you don't have a grown-up there waiting with a stick, or just with this disapproving look to push you to do what you need to do. How do you then show up? Because I find a lot of people actually struggle with this, because peace feels performative. So how do you then make the switch where it actually feels real? Because I found in the beginning of my journey, people would look at me and be like, oh, Karis is so chilled and she's so zen. And underneath, I'm like, huh? I'm struggling here. And I had to make an internal switch for myself. It's like, okay, if I'm not feeling peaceful on an internal level, what are the switches that I need to make? And first of all was the rest component. Yes, like I need to look at what rest means to me and like help my nervous system to feel regulated and being able to sleep early.
Regulated in rest.
Yeah, because you don't know rest when you're in survival. You just know pushing through. You just know, oh, okay, on to the next one.
This is just a limiting belief.
Yeah, it's hustle. And there's this thing with that
1% mentality.
Yeah, I don't believe
10x. You don't want to do, like, I just think of every single Instagram meme that pops up, which is, you don't want to just 2x your business, you want to 10x your business. And if you're doing this wrong. And it's that mentality. Like, these people don't switch off. It's psychopathic. It's actually the new addiction, I'd even say. This entire, this hustle culture and like that performance mindset.
Who's that guy that you like to reference? A lot of your clients also like him. The business guy that always wears that snore strip on his nose.
Oh, Alex Hormozy.
Oh my gosh.
That man needs a nap.
There was a part in his podcast thing that popped up for me, and I was like, ooh, this is problematic, because he references slavery with this whole mentality. He's like, yeah, slaves. Let's dive into slaves. Slaves never rested. They worked sometimes 22-hour days and they were fine. And I'm like, but they didn't live for very long because they never rested.
So he's basically saying that everyone needs to have a slave mentality to get this done. It's crazy.
And so many people are buying into that, because I hear so many guys or even women just quoting Alex Hormozy, and I'm like, you are being a slave to the system or some other machine. Like, why not create something for yourself and actually just start, like, you're allowed to rest. You're a human being.
We need to stay on topic, otherwise we're going to jump into deconstructing capitalism today. Instead of looking at authenticity. But if we're going to really look at identity in itself and looking at this new self, when you begin this process of living authentically, you stop identifying with pain. Pain is no longer a motivator. I find with so many of the incredible people that I get to work with, and I've worked with over the years, pain and that survival instinct is such a big motivator still. It's the whole carrot and the stick. And there's a client that I worked with a few years back, and he used to talk about these two wolves.
Yeah.
And it's, and in his mind was very clear, like, which one am I feeding every single day? And it was basically him talking about the two different parts of himself. The one that's moving forward and expanding and holds his vision. The other one that is,
small and dark and
yes,
controlled by people.
And it was just very interesting. And I think a lot of people tussle with that internal dialogue in some way, shape or form, especially when they are pushing and they are seeking to be seen in this identity. So what you're essentially doing when you are making the shift is you're setting a new reference point. And that reference point isn't just a mental shift, it's also a nervous system shift.
Yeah.
And it's now not the person healing, but it's this person that is living, that is choosing life.
It's interesting when we look at it through the lens of parenting, because for our children, like, Nick and I used to be very motivated by the pain of something, whether it be not having something or the pain of whatever, and it's so interesting because my kids don't work like that at all. They don't care if anything's taken away or whatever else. They're just gonna find another way, or so. Yeah. It's interesting to observe people who don't operate with like pain being the motivator or the big thing in the space. But that's what flipped the script for me. I think one of the things is just identity. Once you go into that nervous system shift, it's your identity becomes fluid again, because you also realize that you're not your job, you are not your relationship status, you are not the things that happen to you, you are not your trauma story, you are not just mother, you are not just you're a living expression of consciousness, constantly remembering yourself. And that is the thing that gives you the freedom to play, to create, and to love without this performance.
So here's a way to practically practice embodied authenticity.
That's a lot of practically practicing.
So there's 5 ways where you can ground into authenticity within your nervous system. So this process of regulate first and respond second. So start every important conversation with 3 slow breaths. I still like the physiological sign. So if you have any idea of who Andrew Huberman is, it's basically 2 inhales, 1 quick short inhale through the nose just to prime the lungs and open them up, and then a long inhale, and you pause for a moment, and then you exhale longer than you inhaled. And you can do that if you're driving, if you're walking, and it's just a really good place to start, and ensure that you exhale through the mouth. The next one would be a word ritual. So I've actually used this with a couple of clients. So pick a morning word, peace, truth, openness, for example, and then repeat it whenever you catch that inner critic arising in your system. So like today, with one of my clients, I just said, well, let's look at how you're speaking about your health and well-being. Instead of saying, I am sick, I am this, I am that, and speaking that onto yourself and onto your life.
Yeah.
Why not speak the opposite? Like, I am constantly evolving and recovering. My body is powerful.
My body knows what to do.
Yes, build instead of break.
Oh my gosh, now that you're talking about that, the thing that flipped the script for me was that story about that guy who accidentally, they got the papers wrong or the room wrong, but they gave this woman a terminal diagnosis and they told her that she has 4 months to live. But then when she died and they did the autopsy, they found she had no cancer in her body.
Yep.
They gave her the wrong diagnosis, but this just goes to show how powerful it is when people speak diagnoses over you. You can also not claim that as truth for you. You can just say, you know what, my body is moving through something. right now. I'm recalibrating, and I know how to get back on track.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
learning how to rest. I'm relearning things, and my body's just recalibrating. That's it.
Next one would be then the body check. So you want to look for tension.
Oh,
So you're looking for unspoken truth, essentially. So look at your shoulders, relax them. Feel into your jaw and clench it if it's tight.
you know, a good way to assess is like when you wake up, like how do you feel when you wake up, to see if you're actually like in a good state or not. Because if you wake up with, or if you have TMJ or tension in your jaw,
So
this
are you
is a
either
wake-up
waking up as
call.
Homer Simpson or are you waking up as David Goggins? There's
Okay.
two. And I'm saying that because Homer Simpson, he just rolls out of bed. He's fluid. He's in
That's
flow.
true.
David Goggins, he's already got his shoes on and he's done 200 miles.
Listen, by the time it's 5 o'clock, he's lived a day already.
Then the next one is an authenticity audit. So each night, ask yourself, where did I honor myself today? Number one, and where did I abandon myself today? And it's a good way just to like check in and see, well, wow. So I wore the mask here today. This is not, I didn't actually want to have that conversation in that way.
Yeah.
But I reacted, I didn't respond. I didn't take the breaths. I didn't check in with my system. So notice, like, you can really use that, and that becomes a filter.
Yeah.
And you journal that on a day-to-day basis. It can be short and sweet. So you can start taking note and start picking up patterns. So that could be a really, really in-depth practice over time. And then looking at connection. Choose connection in terms of, spend time with people whose nervous systems feel safe. And it's an interesting way of phrasing that. People that make you feel safe, open, at ease, at peace within yourself, you are essentially calibrating to their energetic field. They're teaching you.
This is why it's so important to
Co-regulation.
It's important to assess like who we are around. If you go and look at like how the microbiome, like our microbiome is affected by those, like the place that we're in and the people around us. This is also why taking that into account is so important, because if you feel like you're toxic and you're tired and all the things, I'm not saying it's not you, but like maybe take a look at all, like at the people around you,
The rule of
so
five.
it's
Yep.
in the book that I'm referring to about this guy talks about, it's the black box of medicine, but like he makes reference to these people in the blue zones, or the people that have that live the longest. It's because they have great, like they have an amazing, they have amazing friends and family, and they connect to them constantly. So just bringing yourself into spaces where there's healthy people living authentically and people who are happy. And wow, is this going to feel triggering in the beginning? Because in my head, because I'd never seen this model, to me, it was like, whoa, you are pretending. This is not real.
This is a show.
And
It's funny, when people are actually living authentically, we're like, that's a mask.
Yeah.
That's and it's so funny because it will trigger you. When you see people that are actually happy, that have boundaries, that choose themselves, that say no to things that don't align with them, that are unapologetic, that look rested, that feel congruent to how they look and how they show up. It's triggering for a lot of people. They're like, I just don't know why this person irritates me.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke to my cousin yesterday, and she was just saying that, everyone is still so toxic. She can't name anyone in the town that we were from that like seems healthy or genuinely happy. And this was one of my biggest motivators to like leave and come to a place where I can connect to people who have a healthier worldview and like relationship with themselves, and healthier relationships with like parent to child dynamics, and plug into that versus what I thought was my norm. And it is so interesting how much I've learned just being here and not looking through the lens of my wounds, and looking at it through like, you know what? It's not a mask. She's just out here enjoying her life. She doesn't have that like monkey on her back. and tuning into that. And it was so interesting because once I let go of that story, I could actually let go of my monkey on my own back. So the reward for authenticity is peace. You know, you sleep better, you breathe easier, you love deeper, and you attract relationships that match your truth instead of trauma. Because first of all, you stop chasing, and then things just start aligning. And you know, that alignment is contagious. It's magnetic because your presence becomes regulation for others, your kids, your team, your partner, and they feel that calm, that regulation, and they mirror it. And that's the legacy, you know, because the energy you give in life, the energy you live in, always returns to you. And authenticity, what it does is it sends out peace, and it receives that peace back. So, you know, the invitation is that let authenticity become your nervous system's default. Let it feel, let that truth feel like home to you. You know, because the point of all this work isn't to become someone new. It's to finally remember who you've been all along, the calm, the connected, the fully alive version of yourself.
Thanks for joining us on your Frequency Shift podcast. So this completes our series on living authentically, and we hope it's inspired you to live in alignment, speak with clarity, and rest in the truth of who you are. Every shift begins with awareness, so if you're ready to see where your energy is being drained, start with the free Energy Leak scorecard at frequencycoaching.com. And when you're ready to go deeper, our coaching and retreats are there to help you embody the clarity, presence, and power you were built for. Until next time, keep honoring your truth, protecting your energy, and living in the frequency of who you really are. You can make the shift.